Welcome to this candidate interview for the 2020 GSA elections. The GSA is the primary representative body for postgraduate students at the University of York and is run by students for students. Joining me for this interview is Clara, who's running for the position of Vice President, Wellbeing and Community. Clara, would you like to introduce yourself and say why you are running for the position?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I'm Clara. I'm the current Wellbeing and Community Officer, and this year I'm rerunning for a number of reasons. So as a student, I had the opportunity to be a student in 4 different institutions in 4 different countries. So that gave me a perspective of how different the student experience can be and how it was. And when I came to York, I was a course rep, and I realized that I wanted to become involved with what deciding bodies at uni were they. So after a year in the job, I now feel a bit more confident about the institutional knowledge that I have. I think that now I understand what is to take part of university discussions and negotiations, and I think that can reflect and inform my campaigns and reflect the effectivity of them. So I spent the first 6 months in the role trying to familiarize with the role and with higher education in the UK and its governing bodies. And I think this background will help me to achieve my objectives this year.
Thank you. Now, in your introduction and in your manifesto, you've touched on a range of issues that students face. So what do you think is the biggest wellbeing issue faced by postgraduate students, and what would you do to combat it?
I think well-being is always a matter of issues that we need to take a look holistically. I think that it links a lot, even if a lot of people when talking about well-being, they only think about mental health issues. I think it also links to the quality of life and to material issues such as finance and accommodation. And having a look at the last few months of our lives and seeing how students are struggling, I would say one of the main issues at the moment is accommodation. So we know that students usually rely on savings and family income and their wages to cover rent, and a lot of them have lost their part-time jobs and they are not eligible for universal credit, or they are not eligible for housing benefits. And this is something really concerning that is going to affect the mental health of our students, and it's clearly going to affect for the next academic year. I think the University of York has been dragging the effects of the mental health crisis for some years, and obviously there are things that can be done very clearly to improve the services, such as increasing the number of counseling appointments in open doors, reviewing the triage system that they use, or the use of self-help resources, and trying to have a renewed evaluation system for the service. But I think that now, looking at how the university is constructing, it's building and developing their new mental health strategy for the next years, it has become clear that mental health has to be a university-wide priority, and it has to come with a lot of initiatives such as compulsory supervisor training. Another objective that I would say can help to the mental health of students is to develop a support system that understands that the students are not an homogeneous group, and that they need, so postgraduates need student support plans that are targeted for postgraduate students. And because 60% of the population of postgraduate students at York are international, we need to look at the language barriers in the access to services, or we need to take a look at how the support services for distance learners are, because especially if we are going to face a beginning of the academic year which is going to be online, I think we will certainly need to be looking at some of this.
So that was quite a shopping list of issues. You covered finance, accommodation, mental health, support for international and distance learning. Which one do you think is the biggest issue for students? Just one of them.
Mental health.
Okay. And what do you think are the most important things that the university and the GSA, if applicable, could do to address that?
So as I've said, I think that um, so I think that looking at the university provision at the moment, there are very concrete things that can be done to increase, to improve mental health. They can take a look at how many counseling sessions do they offer, and take a look at how the triage system for students to access that service is, and or they could look at and review how many self-help resources are delivered to students, or how the students evaluate those services. But I think that looking at the mental health strategy and how they are developing it for next year, we could be introducing mental health as a university priority for the next years. And we could be doing this in a number of ways, but like especially understanding that students are not homogeneous and that students are really different in their needs, especially if we're looking at postgraduate students. We need to be looking at student support plans that apply to PhD studies and not only to undergrads. We need to be looking at language barriers for international students that are the 60% of our population. And we need to take a look at how distance learners access those support services, especially if we are going to start having our lectures online for the next academic year.
Thank you. How do you intend to foster a sense of community for postgraduate students, especially for postgraduate research students?
Okay, I think one of the most interesting things that I've done this year was taking part of the university strategy, and we were having a lot of discussions there about what the meaning of community is. I think sometimes community is a word that it's used by universities, and it's used so often that it loses its content and it's empty of meaning. But we know that one of the most interesting part about the academic experience of a student is finding and building connections with other people, and I believe that enrich your time at uni. So for example, like looking at how international students struggle when they arrive here, or students with different needs, or how difficult it is to meet people when you're a mature student. I think like as a student union, we are really relevant in building and creating spaces for students to encounter. I think we do that in a number of ways, and I understand now we do workshops and socials and trips and board games, but I think it's not enough. That's why one of the things that I wanted to do for next year is trying to take a look at how this student union shapes the postgraduate networks. And so we have 5 networks at the moment, but I think they could be built into a way that work as a space of contact and as a space to connect people that identify with the same interests and ideas.
Thank you. Now, one of the areas in which the GSA is active and that falls under the remit of the VP Wellbeing and Community is sports. And what would you do to improve sporting provision for postgraduate students?
Okay, so I think one of the best things about the GSA is that it complements quite well the sport provision that the university offers. So we offer free and non-competitive sessions, and the students can use as drop-ins, and they don't have that competitiveness of the team. And this system works well, particularly in some times of the year, whereas and like people use them like very occasionally. They don't use it as in a committed regular way as other sports, but we need to better the structure and the provision that we have. So I think introducing a sport coordinators with 2 or 3 volunteers per sport that can provide a point of contact between the students and the teams and the union could be really good to activate the Facebook groups and to act as a reference for students. I think we could also be doing tournaments to provide a time of the year where students can discover and join new sports to also increase the visibility of the union at campus. And yeah, I think like we could join other student unions initiatives like the one that the disabilities officers at JUSU suggested this year, in terms of rethinking what sports provision do we offer, and how do we adapt to different student needs and abilities. So try to make our sports more accessible, and trying to make our sports sessions family friendly, for example, would be some of the ideas.
Thank you. Now, the GSA has a very diverse membership, and one of the key constituency groups in that are mature students. Now, what would you do to help build a community for mature students? And that includes students who've retired from full-time work to pursue education.
Yeah. So again, I think it's a matter of trying to create welcoming spaces. So, for example, the other day, I was in a meeting with students with care responsibilities, and a student was saying that it's not the same that the campus allows children to be there. That's saying that the campus is family welcoming, and I think this can be applied to mature students too. When the situation is that you arrive to a society and you don't feel that you belong there, or you don't feel that you can connect with people because they are really different. So I think that we need to, as a postgraduate union, we need to start creating spaces where people can meet other people with the same interests, with the same views, and with the same life experience. And I think that would be.
Okay, thanks. Now, one of the issues, another issue that is something that falls within the portfolio of well-being and community, and is also an issue for many students on campus, is food provision. So, how would you work with the university? To improve the food provision across campus?
I think that's a quite interesting question because I've never sat in a committee that takes part of deciding what kind of food do we provide to students. But I think it's really good to start questioning ourselves, where do we buy our food for our students from? I think at York we have the lack of having a students co-op that provides veg boxes for students, and I think as a student union we could be promoting these student-led initiatives, and we could be doing things as student canteens run by the students. So, for example, when I went to Manchester to do a workshop this year, the student union had their own building, which offered affordable and healthy food, but they had also spaces for postgraduate, and they have more presence on campus with the building, and they have family spaces and study spaces. So I think like having a student union building where we can offer student-led catering and student run and student co-op catering would be a nice idea if we could achieve that.
So obviously, a students' union building is a big and expensive solution to things. Is there anything that you think the university could do without taking that step to improve either the range of food or accessibility to food on campus, or the cost of food provision?
Yeah, I think like obviously reviewing the contracts that they have with the canteens would be the most approachable thing to do. I think also most of the cafeterias or bars that are at campus are belong to USU as a student union, and like we could review what kind of food we offer, and in terms of if it's healthy and if it's good quality. But I think trying to join with the student unions to make affordable food would be an idea, and like try to finance groups of students that have initiatives to develop co-ops would be a good idea too.
Thank you. What would you do to address the lack of postgraduate accommodation on campus?
Yes, I would also like to know that. So looking at an overview of what we have now at university, we have 9 colleges where the cheapest accommodation it's £99 per week, 99 to £155, and there are around 1,000 rooms for postgraduates, but this is simply not enough to cover the range of the demand. And we know for a fact that postgraduate students prefer off-campus accommodation, but maybe this is because the quality of the accommodation outside campus and the flexibility of the space and the flexibility of contracts is something that they cannot be offered inside university. So I think one of the things, for example, the inconvenience of campus accommodation, if we look at the provision that they have for families at Halifax College or at Garroway or York Housing Association, is that the prices £200 per week is are very expensive because the bills are not included, but also the contracts that they have do not allow them to renew for a further year. So for example, if you're a postgraduate student with a family and you want to study on campus because you are studying your PhD through 4 years, you don't want to change your children every year from accommodation to accommodation. You want to be able to have that flexibility in your contract. I think one of the main things that I'm aiming for in my manifesto are the quality of the rooms, but also lower prices and the flexibility in contracts. I commit to try to look at affordable payment plans, the flexibility of rent payments and arrears, and reconsidering also early release or overstaying in contracts without penalty clauses. So I think those are all manageable things that university could be looking at.
Thank you. What would you do to encourage international students to integrate with home students?
Okay. I think this is something that has been asked quite a lot during this year, and it's quite interesting being an international student itself. And I think it's one of the things that what I'm running with one of my point of manifestos, which is diversifying York, because I think diversifying is also looking at how we build a community that integrates and recognizes difference between students. I think international students are a valued part of our student community, but they are not appreciated enough. Most of the times they think that they are just here because they are paying unreasonable fees to do their studies at university. And for me, looking at how to make it better for students to make a transition between institutions, ensuring that they have appropriate service when they come here, that they have information regarding how to live in the UK, how to get financial support, how to have healthcare coverage, and how to do their visa application more easily, are all things that are integrated into having like a more integrated community between international students and home students. I think it's also looking at how the different backgrounds are integrated in the academic experience, and how do we acknowledge and value non-Western knowledges and non-Western thoughts, and the difference in ways of learning, and the different pedagogies that there are there. I think like starting by recognizing that value in the difference would be a good starting point.
Thank you. Now I've got a couple of more specific questions that relate to your manifesto.
Okay.
And one of the things you mentioned in there is that you want all supervisors to undergo compulsory mental health awareness training. So how do you plan to get the support of the university for this and get it rolled out?
Okay, I think I've mentioned it before, but I think through the mental health strategy would be one of the long-term objectives that could be achievable. I think there is a lot of discrepancies on whether if academics can endure another training, because most of the times the arguments are that they do not have the time or the commitment to do all of the training that is required from them. I think that is one of the main issues, that the students' primary point of contact are their departments, and therefore their academics are the persons that have more contact with our students, and that's why we require so many trainings from them. We require training in sexual violence disclosures and mental health issues, and I think looking at how we could develop this in the long run would be something achievable, because we will not be asking for professors to just know right now how to deal with someone disclosing to them, or how to deal with a crisis. I think York is really good at tackling mental health crisis. I think we have a lot of resources, and we have a lot of connection with York City Council programs and projects and local organizations. But I think there is an emptiness in terms of resources and services that we can provide to students in the more day-to-day mental health, and that can be supported by supervisors, and that can be there for them.
Okay, thank you. Now, something else that you cover in your manifesto is restorative justice, and how you'd like that to be embedded in the disciplinary procedures at the university. What would that look like in practice?
So this idea came from some focus groups that we did as part of the Office for Student Sexual Harassment and Misconduct consultation. We took some surveys and we did some focus groups, and one of the most interesting ideas that came from the students was that they didn't want punishment as a solution for sexual violence. I think like that is one of the things that sometimes gets misinterpreted by institutions, but also by the public in general, is that when a victim or a survivor reports something, what they want is revenge, and what they want is an outcome that can show that the perpetrator has been punished. And I think that's completely misunderstood, and restorative justice can be quite the answer here, because it can give us the possibility of thinking other outcomes that do not come from fines, which is what we actually have for perpetrators, paying fines or being expelled from university campus for 3 to 5 days. I don't think that is tackling the structural consequences of sexual violence. I think something as workshops and zero tolerance trainings and sexual violence is going to be embedded into the everyday discussions and academic experience would be something that would be more effective, because it would be in the long run, but it would be a solution that would tackle structural differences and power imbalance inside university.
Thank you. Something else that you cover in your manifesto is flexible rent payments for accommodation. So what would that look like and how would it work?
Okay. So that idea came from the current situation, because at the moment we are seeing a lot of students that needed to leave early from their contracts or need to overstay because they're staying at York and they cannot move from here. So just thinking at how the arrangements are done for students that need to leave earlier, that need to overstay, that pose a lot of questions regarding how are they going to financially overcome this situation, like people that have got fired from their jobs right now, or that they can simply they cannot pay for the rent. So looking at how the university works, the financing could have more flexibility in their payments, in the same way that they have flexibility around the fees payments. So looking at maybe having a loan system that works better, or like some grant system that includes rent, so students can access to it and can have that flexibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we've got a couple of minutes left. One more question from me, and then I'll hand over to you, and you can say anything else that you don't feel you've had the chance to add, or anything else you want to cover in more detail. So, in one sentence, why should people vote for you?
To vote for me because I have the experience. I have done the critical reflection on my work this year. I have very strong political views, and I want to continue working into keeping university accountable, transparent, and representative.
Thank you, Clara. So now's your chance to add anything else about what you stand for, why you're running, and what you want to do in the role.
Okay, I think I'm very transparent on my social media, so everything that you can ask me questions regarding why I'm running, what do I want to do, but mainly for me it's an opportunity to continue with the work that I've been doing the last months, to continue focusing on some of the issues that I don't think I have time to finish before August, to continue running campaigns and trying to represent students, and to make the student union also more representative and more transparent to students. I am quite keen of trying to engage students in the best way possible into the student union. I want to make our council meetings open for students to take decisions and to take political decisions into our structure. And yeah, I want to be there for you and like represent the student views.
Clara, thank you very much.
Thank you.